Hello NBA fans, and welcome to the 24th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA the week that was. In today's episode, I'll be analyzing the Portland Trail Blazers and what went well for them this year, what could be worked on moving forward, and how I think they'll be doing when the season resumes. So without further ado, let's get right into the 24th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA the week that was. The Portland Trail Blazers had quite a good 2018-2019 campaign, reaching the Western Conference Finals and having a great playoff run, which of course had that iconic Lillard shot to eliminate the Thunder in the first round of the playoffs and a great 7-game series against the Nuggets. However, this year really wasn't the same. After a lackluster offseason, they really failed to build an identity. Let's talk about the offseason first. While people really focus on those additions of veterans such as Hassan Whiteside and Carmelo Anthony, who came later on in the season, they really forget to account for the losses that they had in free agency and, a suspect draft for the position the team is in. Let me talk about the draft first. They got Nasir Little in this draft, and while he is a great prospect coming out of the University of North Carolina, it really isn't the player that the Portland Trail Blazers needed right now. He was a freshman, a one-and-done guy who needs time to develop in the NBA. The Portland Trail Blazers needed a 21 or 22-year-old who's played 3 or 4 years in college who can really, boost the score of the Trail Blazers. A guy who's proven in college who's more NBA ready than Nasir Little is. While Little might become the better player than the guy they could have drafted, such as Duncan Robinson, who ended up going to the Heat, or Kendrick Nunn, who they could have signed in as an undrafted free agent, Nasir Little isn't ready for this core right now, and the Trail Blazers needed a guy who can continue to push them in their long stretch of the playoffs that they've been making so far, and just help the score in a way that Nasir Little really couldn't this year. Other key losses in this year's free agency were Al-Farouq Aminu, Myers Leonard, and Enes Kanter. When Jusuf Nurkic went down due to his gruesome leg injury in March of 2019, which he was out for this whole year, which I'll be going into later, Enes Kanter really stepped into that starting center role and was key in their playoff run. While he isn't the best defensive center, his offensive scoring abilities in the paint and his rebounding are some of the best in the NBA, and losing those abilities to the Celtics and replacing him with Hassan Whiteside really wasn't the same. Whiteside didn't provide that same production that Kanter and Jusuf Nurkic did. Hassan Whiteside, while he did have his games, he really, he isn't what he was before, and really didn't help the Trailblazers core in a way that some of us thought he was, regain his old form. He really didn't do that. So I think the Trailblazers really felt that loss of Enes Kanter and Jusuf Nurkic due to injury. Another guy that they lost in free agency was Myers Leonard to the Miami Heat. I think they believe that he was an expendable player due to the fact that they had Hassan Whiteside, Nurkic, who would come back from injury, and Zach Collins, who was the 10th pick in I think the 2017 or 2016 draft. He's looking like a good center. He's going to be a great center for the Trailblazers moving forward, and form a good front court with Nurkic moving forward for these Portland Trailblazers. However, he also went down with injury, so losing Myers Leonard, that stretch 5 that they have had off the bench for the past few years, really hurt, with the fact that they lost their big men. They didn't have Kanter, they didn't have Nurkic, they didn't have Collins, so the only big man they were left with who was notable was Hassan Whiteside, which really proved costly for the Portland Trailblazers. Another key loss that the Trailblazers had in this free agency that people tend to overlook is Al-Farouq Aminu leaving for the Orlando Magic. Aminu has always proved himself as a great 3-and-D wing for the Portland Trailblazers and can guard multiple positions. He can guard small forwards who are quicker, but he can also guard big men in the paint. He was a very good defender, one of the better defensive players on the Trailblazers. They attempted to replace him with Carmelo Anthony, but again, Melo isn't what he used to be. He isn't like that player that he was back in Denver or New York. Yes, he did help the Portland Trailblazers win some games this year, but his defense and just his the lack of offensive efficiency really proved costly for the Trailblazers, and I think they would have loved to have Aminu more than they love Melo, and Aminu would have been a better player for the Trailblazers in this situation. However, we can't forget to overlook some great players that continue to do their thing for the Trailblazers, starting with Damian Lillard, one of my favorite players in the NBA and arguably one of the best players in the NBA. With Steph Curry out, he showed himself as the best point guard in this season and just did his thing. I mean, Damian Lillard, what else do I have to say? His leadership, his determination, his courage, his bravery, just his overall basketball abilities, but also his persona. It's priceless for the Portland Trailblazers. He's one of the best players in Trailblazers history and continues to show it. He showed himself as one of the best players in the NBA continuously, and in some stretches looked like the best player in the NBA. He can just score the ball. He's just, I don't know. It's indescribable for what Lillard's impact is on the Portland Trailblazers. Another player who continued to do this thing is the second fiddle in this Batman and Robin situation. It's CJ McCollum. While it wasn't his best year, he still played well, scoring those 22 points a game, being that 3-point marksman, but also having the ability to have a great floater game and just scoring in unorthodox ways while being undersized. So McCollum did his thing, Lillard did his thing. Another player I'd like to mention is Rodney Hood. Unfortunately, he went down with an ACL injury, which cost him a lot of time this year, and will be a big loss for the Trailblazers when they play in Orlando. He really was that third scoring option, more than Melo, in fact. I feel he was more efficient and played better to the strengths of Lillard and McCollum. He has a great off-the-ball shooting ability, but when he needs to orchestrate an offense, he can, which is invaluable for a team like the Trailblazers. When their star sits, they need that guy to, step up, and Rodney Hood was that guy, but unfortunately, he went out with injury. The last player I feel stood out for the Portland Trailblazers this year was Anthony Simmons. Well, despite being a young backup point guard, he had his nights. He was very invaluable for them off the bench on some nights. His 3-point shooting ability is uncanny, but he is also underrated as a playmaker. So despite being relatively inconsistent due to his age, Anthony Simmons was a great addition for the Trailblazers off the bench. Like I said, Melo and Hassan Whiteside were like star additions in free agency. They really didn't live up to the expectations or the way that they played before in their careers. However, I feel that the Portland Trailblazers really struggled this year was because due to losses in free agency, injuries, and the overall just the lack of time to build an identity as a core. They had to put two very erratic personalities in Hassan Whiteside and Carmelo Anthony in their locker room with a proven leader like Damian Lillard. And I think that along with I think it was just the lack of an identity of a Portland Trailblazers team. Like, they didn't have that same effect that they had before because those old teams of the Trailblazers, like last year and the year before, they had worked together. They had been together for a while, and this year that really changed for the Trailblazers, so it was a struggle for them. However, speaking about Orlando, I feel that they can make a push and really force that play-in tournament and in fact make the 8th seed and make the playoffs in Orlando when the season resumes. The play-in tournament will happen when the 9th seed is within 4 games of the 8th seed. Then they will play a best-of-3 tournament. However, the 8th seed only has to win 1 game, but the 9th seed has to win 2. I feel that the Trailblazers can make the play-in tournament and force the play-in tournament against the Memphis Grizzlies, and they'll beat them due to the fact that they're more proven. They have more proven stars, and that always is crucial in a playoff situation. The Grizzlies team, while they're looking like one of the best young teams in the NBA, they really aren't proven in the playoffs, and just the ability of Lillard to step up in the playoffs that we've seen for countless years will really prove invaluable for the Trailblazers. However, I feel that their playoff run will come to an end in the first round when they come up against the Lakers, because I firmly believe that the Lakers will be winning the championship this year. So while this was not a good year for the Trailblazers, I mean, next year if they can, get their players back from injury in Nurkic, Collins, and really help Whiteside and Melo integrate into this core in a better way, they'll be back in the playoffs and fighting for that playoff spot that they've been doing for the last 3 or 4 years. However, when Lillard and McCollum's time comes up, it'll be time for a rebuild in Portland. And with that, I would like to wrap up the 24th episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA the week that was. If you're enjoying this series, please leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new as well with the notification bell on. If you have any feedback for me, positive or negative, please leave it in the comment section down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode of the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly series here on the NBA the week that was. See ya!